UFC Vegas 98 matchmaking time. Let's get into it. We're going to match up a lot of the fighters on the card this weekend that actually over-delivered with who I think they should fight next, and giving you just a rough time frame. Not going to give you all exact because that's where it gets dicey. I don't know exactly when all the cards are going to be held, but let's just get right into it here, starting with the UFC Vegas 98 matchmaking, the early prelims. Winner Clayton Carpenter, good win this weekend over Lucas Rocha. I'd like to see him fight Ode Osborne, who fought in September. Had a pretty competitive fight with Ronaldo Rodriguez. Clayton Carpenter looked really good against Lucas Rocha. I think that Clayton Carpenter can turn around pretty quickly. Ode Osborne took some damage in this fight. Not as much as Ronaldo Rodriguez did, but took some damage. Clayton Carpenter's young. He's going to keep working on his skills. I say if we see this sometime in February, it looks pretty good. We do want to see these 4-month turnarounds, so a February fight night prelim fight, this would be a good one. Moving on, Cody Haddon, very impressive win. Very impressive performance. Why am I forgetting the name of the guy he was facing? But he had a really, really good win for Dan Argueta. Looked good in the fight. This guy looks like he can be a legit prospect. I want to keep working him up in these bantamweight rankings. Let's see him fight Toshiyami Kazama. I don't want to see him fight these murderers right off the bat. I think Cody Haddon still has a little bit of improving to do, but he's good. Let's get him some wins. Let's get him some finishes and have him keep working up. This is an Australian prospect that I actually think is pretty damn good. Want to say he's about 8-1 now, maybe 9-1 after that win. I'll double check his record another time, but Toshiyami Kazama had a submission win over Charalampos Gregorio. Two guys coming off wins, similar spots in the flyweight rankings. Obviously not top 15 guys, but I would say they're top 50 guys easily. Cody Haddon is. Toshiyami Kazama, we'll see. But I think this is a good matchup. We have a guy that got a finish versus Cody Haddon. Helps build his hype a little bit. Again, I want to see this happen in the February-March timeframe, 4 or 5 months. No waiting a ton. You know, if you're this early in your career, I get it. We want to improve. We want to get better. I think the UFC is actually going... UFC 312 is supposed to be in February. And I believe that is going to be in Australia. Cody Haddon's Australian. Toshiyami Kazama's Japanese. This is an early prelim fight on the UFC 312 card in Australia. So there you go. Made right there for you. So UFC Australia 312 early prelims make it happen. Julia Pilastri versus Victoria Dudakova. Pilastri had a win recently. Obviously this card. Victoria Dudakova had a pretty close loss. Yeah, I'm going to go with this is the fight to make. I don't know, do it at some early prelim opener, some fight card coming up in the beginning of next year. Moving on, Junior Tafa just had a win over Sean Sharaf. Didn't look overly impressive, but he wants someone that's just going to fight with him. Let's give him Rebelis to Spain, man. One of these Tafa bros have to take on Rebelis to Spain. Neither of the guys are going to shoot takedowns, and we're going to see a crazy knockout. I don't know what we're waiting for. You want to build Rebelis to Spain's name, you put him against the Tafa brother and have him get a knockout. If he loses, the Tafa brother's name, whoever he fights and whoever ends up winning, that name gets built. The winner of this fight is going to have a crazy knockout and their stock's going to rise. I don't know why we haven't seen it made yet. Junior Tafa versus Rebelis to Spain. Rebelis to Spain has a fight coming up. I don't remember against who, but if you have this fight done in like March, should be pretty interesting, should be pretty fun. Moving on, Nico Price lost, but the reason I'm ranking him even though he lost, he's a name. We're going to probably use his name to build more prospects coming up. And I think it's the Oban Elliott Basel Hafez fight. Whoever wins this fight should get the Nico Price shot. I think these two are fighting sometime around November, end of November, I believe. Yeah, let's have Nico Price fight the winner of these two. Probably February. I would say maybe March. That gives Nico Price about 5 months. It gives these guys about 4 months. It's a good fight to make. If they want to take a jump up in the competition, Nico Price is the guy to fight that has a little bit of name value. February, March for the winner. Moving on, it's Themba Gorimbo. Big win over Nico Price, obviously. Let's have him keep moving up those rankings. This is a Chaos Williams fight here. Just bothering me. Chaos Williams versus Themba Gorimbo is a good fight to make, and I think whoever wins this fight has a chance to take a shot into the top 15. Both guys have win streaks, similarly ranked at welterweight. Themba Gorimbo, marketable guy. Everyone knows his story. Chaos Williams, he's just powerful knockout artist that does have some name value in the UFC. Nothing crazy, but some. The winner of this fight can start looking at that top 15 breaking in there. This is a good win for either guy, whoever gets it done. This is a fight that the winner's going to get in the top 15. I said it 15 times already, but Chaos Williams doesn't have a fight booked right now. Themba Gorimbo's coming off a win. If you do this sometime in March, I think it's a really good way to get people in the rankings. Themba Gorimbo likes to make quick turnarounds as well, so I could even see this being done in February. Good fight to make. Moving on, Jonathan Pierce, and this is like a, main card of a fight night. This is a prelim headliner or prelim co-headliner of a pay-per-view, I think. I wish it wasn't that way, but the UFC doesn't like to overly stack cards unless it's, 308. 310's pretty good, by the way. Going to come out with a video on that probably today, so keep an eye out for that. Themba, Chaos Williams, winner gets a top 15 opponent sometime in February, March. Moving on, JSP, another guy that lost, but I'm putting him in here because he's got some name value. I'd like to see him fight Kyle Nelson. Kyle Nelson coming off a loss to Steve Garcia. This is a pretty good fight to make. Two guys that are going to bring it. Kyle Nelson has some power. JSP is relentlessly aggressive. Make this fight happen sometime in March. Kyle Nelson took a beating against Steve Garcia. Jonathan Pierce got subbed pretty quickly, so I don't see him needing to take too much time off. It's just, let's just get back to work and try and get in the win column. Even February I'm okay with for this. Sometime in the March-February timeframe, this is a fight night prelim headliner waiting to happen. Or if it was in the Apex, it'd be a co-main event probably, but it is what it is. We're not getting the Apex in 2025, at least early 2025, so I'm happy with that. And we'll move on. Pat Sabatini. Would love to see him make a quick turnaround. This is a big win for him. Like to see him fight sometime in January against a guy who just won their last fight against an up-and-coming prospect, Julian Erosa. Two guys with good submission jiu-jitsu games. Pat Sabatini's pure jiu-jitsu, I think, is better, but the lankiness of the limbs for Julian Erosa definitely prove a problem. I think Julian Erosa is more aggressive and a better striker than Pat Sabatini as well, so would be interested in seeing this fight on the prelims of a pay-per-view in January. UFC 311 prelims, Julian Erosa, Pat Sabatini. I think it's a pretty good fight to make. Moving on. Ramazan Temirov, huge knockout win over CJ Vergara. Let's see him against Jesus Aguilar. I think this is another guy that has power in his hands, that has some submissions, like a guillotine specifically, he has pretty well. But Ramazan Temirov is an absolute ball of muscle that likes to charge forward and knock people out. I think this is actually going to be a sneaky, fun fight that just ends in a round one finish either way. Going to go with Temirov, obviously, to win it. But I think this is a good fight to get Temirov up in those rankings. You got a guy in Jesus Aguilar coming off back-to-back wins. That's big. That's very big for a guy in Temirov to fight. So, Jesus Aguilar, Ramazan Temirov. This is another fight that we can do in January, man. I'd like to see quick turnarounds for these young guys. January is the time frame. And we move on to the main card. Daniel Rodriguez won over Alex Morono. Not the most impressive victory, but he got the victory. Daniel Rodriguez has some name value. There's a fight coming up between Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos and Nicholas Dalby, and I think D-Rod fighting the winner would be pretty intriguing. These guys are both coming off losses. D-Rod's coming off a win, but he's, off a not as great of opponent as either of these two guys are. Should start taking a look up after that win. And the winner of this fight should be looking for a little bit more of a name value kind of fight to get their name back in the conversation. Daniel Rodriguez can fight the winner of these two. Again, we're targeting a March timeframe. I think these two fight in October at some point or early November. This is a good fight to make for March. It's a fight night main card fight, pay-per-view prelim. It's a good one to make. And we move on again. I'm going to stop saying and we move on. I don't like the way my transitions have been going. Grant Dawson, impressive performance against Rafa Garcia. Now hear me out. Grant Dawson can take another fight against a lower level opponent pretty quickly and then immediately deserve a spot in the rankings, or he can sit and wait for this one guy who's coming off a brutal loss recently, who's probably going to not want to fight until about March, but needs to fight outside the rankings because his only really impressive win of recently, his only wins are to people outside of the rankings. He's fought in the rankings twice, had big jumps ups in the rankings and kind of big jump ups. But it's Benoit Saint-Denis, dude. Benoit Saint-Denis needs to get another win before he gets another shot at a ranked guy that's above him. I'm going to say it how it is. Now, I think he can beat Grant Dawson, but this is a very intriguing fight. Grant Dawson's going to try and get it to the ground. Can he hold Benoit Saint-Denis there and end up getting a finish or a decision victory? I don't know. He might be able to. But Benoit Saint-Denis may be able to walk through Grant Dawson and make it hard for Grant Dawson to get takedowns because Benoit Saint-Denis wants to walk forward the whole time. Be very interested in this fight. I think Grant Dawson does deserve a jump in the rankings at this point. His only loss in the UFC is to Bobby Green off of a flash knockout because I don't think Grant Dawson's chin's the best. But another thing, we're going to give Grant Dawson a bigger name because he had a great post-fight interview moment. I know he's talking about his wife's badonkadonk, but like that's something that, drew up some name value. It got the attention of a lot of people because it was just a funny, good post-fight moment. He fights out of a really good gym. The ATT guys have been beating the piss out of Benoit Saint-Denis. Let's see if Benoit Saint-Denis can get it right or if ATT just has his number. We're going with Grant Dawson versus Benoit Saint-Denis sometime in March. This is a fight that I would put as a main card opener on a pay-per-view. I think it would be very, very intriguing. Chidi Njokuani, big win over Jared Gooden. Really used his tie clinch really well. That's how you use grappling. That's how you use cage grappling, at least. You get to the clinch and you look to do damage. You pussy Mario Batista. You pussy Merab Dvalishvili. Kevin Doucette, guy that's going to want to strike. I think these two would have a really, really good time striking. It'd be a very fun fight. You can put this on the main card of a fight night. It's very intriguing. You can put this as the prelims, again, on the UFC 312 card that is expected to be in Australia. If this is on the prelims of UFC 312 in Australia, then it's going to shape up to be a good card. That's what I'm targeting this for. UFC 312 prelims, Kevin Doucette, Chidi Njokuani. Kevin Doucette is fighting out of New Zealand at City Kickboxing. Would think he'd be okay with a short travel to Australia. Chidi Njokuani isn't really in a situation where he can say no to the UFC. The guy's had multiple losses, and I think he's 2-3 in his UFC career. I know he called out someone in the rankings. Bro beat Reese McKee and Jared Gooden. He lost to G-Rod. What has this guy done to deserve a rankings fight? He doesn't deserve it, so give him a Kevin Doucette fight. Brad Tavares, a guy that we're going to be looking to use as kind of a stepping stone now. Unless he can rattle off some of these wins, gatekeeping, and move himself up, he's going to be used as that stepping stone. And I think the guy the UFC is going to match him up with is going to come off a win against Armen Petrosyan. And I think if Shara beats Armen Petrosyan, which is what I expect, one more fight before he gets a rankings fight, and I think the guy to beat that isn't going to try and grapple with him, I think it's Brad Tavares, man. Listen, October 26th there's fighting. He fought on October 12th. I think this is going to be a February fight night right before Ramadan, sometime in Abu Dhabi, somewhere in like Abu Dhabi or somewhere in the Middle East, Saudi Abu Dhabi, something like that. Right before Ramadan, these two are going to have it out. Think Shara's going to come off a win against Armen Petrosyan. And the perfect person to fight before you get a shot into the rankings is going to be a Brad Tavares. He's a name, a guy that used to be ranked. This is going to be the one for Shara. And it's not overly, winnable for Shara. It's winnable, but it's not like it's a guaranteed victory. So I just think it would be intriguing. Moving on, Jung Young Park called out a fight into the rankings. This guy is coming off a win streak right now. He's looked good in his last couple fights. He's entertaining. What he brings. I think he does deserve his ranking fight. And it's going to be against the loser of Anthony Hernandez versus Michel Pereira, which I'm letting you know right now. Predictions coming out later this week. But I think that we're due for a main event insane flash knockout, and I think that Michel Pereira is going to do it with timing a perfect flying knee on Anthony Hernandez shooting a takedown. But we'll get to that later this week. Jung Young Park, Michel Pereira, or Anthony Hernandez, whoever loses this fight should be fighting Jung Young Park to defend their ranking spot. This is the good fight to make. Sometime in February, you can do this as a February co-main event of a fight night. You can do this as a, main card opener of a pay-per-view sometime in March, February. I think it'd be really good, but I don't think they're going to put this in Australia. Maybe a March pay-per-view, main card opener. I like that a lot. But this is the fight that needs to be made. The loser of the Michelle Pereira-Anthony Hernandez defending their ranking spot against Jung Young Park. I think he deserves a shot in the rankings. I also think G-Rod does, but I think G-Rod's going to get a rankings fight before we see this one get announced. Moving on. There it is again. Said moving on. Tatsuro Taira. This is a lot of the stuff that you guys want to see. Who does Taira fight next? Because his wins aren't over this insane competition. He has a win over Alex Perez, who got injured in the fight due to Tatsuro Taira being as good as he is. Edgar Shayrez he's beat. Who else is in the rankings that he's beat? He just doesn't have like that many big names that are that impressive of victories here. But he had a very close fight with the number one ranked Brandon Royval. And he does deserve to keep fighting in the rankings. Now, I think it's the winner of Manel Kape versus Bruno Silva. If Bruno Silva wins, he's going to move up to that 8 spot. I think it's a good spot for Tatsuro Taira to fight. If Manel Kape wins, he's going to stay around that 7-8 spot. May move above Mateusz Nicolau. But I think the winner of this fight is a perfect matchup for Tatsuro Taira. This fight is happening, I want to say November? Sometime in November? Tatsuro Taira kind of took a beating at times from Brandon Royval. It's the first time he's really been beaten up. I'd like to see this as a main card opener for some pay-per-view in like March or April. I think there's going to be 2 pay-per-views in March, if I'm being honest. But I think sometime in March, pay-per-view opener, Tatsuro Taira versus the winner of Manel Kape Bruno Silva. I think it's a really good fight to make. And it's a good ranked flyweight fight. Gets Tatsuro Taira possibly back in the win picture, or he gets fully fraud checked and we get to find out. But I think this guy's an absolute dog. I think he's going to fight really well, and I think he's just going to constantly improve. Tatsuro Taira versus the winner of this fight, March pay-per-view, open up the main card. I think it'd be really good. And Brandon Royval, I've been thinking, you have Brandon Royval coming off 2 wins in a row. He's calling out title shots. And does he deserve it? Kinda. He beat Brandon Moreno, and he beat Tatsuro Taira. Both of which I thought were clean, unanimous decision victories. Both of which got scored a split. So, I think the UFC's sick of rematches. If Pantoja wins, I don't think they're going to give it to Royval over Kaya Sakura, because Kaya Sakura is fighting Pantoja. Now, if Kaya Sakura wins, I think we're getting Royval versus Kaya Sakura clearly. Easy. If Pantoja wins, I think they're going to look for a defined number 1 contender, and I don't think they'll just automatically give it to the Albazi-Moreno winner. If it's Moreno, they're not giving it to Moreno. If it's Albazi, I think they're sick of Albazi. I think Albazi robbed Kai Kara-France in his last fight. He fights once a year. His other wins are against like Ayman Zahabi and nobody else. So I don't think it's going to be Albazi. I think they're going to look for a defined number 1 contender, and I think they're going to do and announce this for sometime in February, January maybe, because Brandon Royval's been good at, active, and kudos to him for that. I think they're going to do this fight on UFC 312 on the main card. Main card, Brandon Royval, Kai Kara-France, number 1 contenders fight for the Kaya Sakura Alessandre Pantoja winner, which I think is going to be Pantoja, and whoever wins this is going to be coming off multiple wins. A win over Steve Erceg with an impressive first-round knockout. If he beats Kai Kara-France, then he would have beaten Kai Kara-France, Brandon Moreno, Tatsuro Taira, easily deserving of a title shot. I also think Kai Kara-France got robbed by Albazi, so to me, he's coming off wins against Albazi and Steve Erceg. This is how you define a real number 1 contender. You make this fight happen. You can do a flyweight co-main event, but if I think you did a 3-rounder February, if they really do go to Australia, you make this a 3-rounder in Australia, this is good, because both guys have 5-round fight experience, kind of. Like, they've both been in main event. Yeah, they do. I don't know what I'm saying kind of for. We've already seen what they look like in 5 rounds. Let's see them just completely scrap it out for 3 rounds, and the winner gets the Pantoja Asakura winner. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any other matchups you'd like to make or you think are more worthy, let me know. Thanks for tuning in, and if you can, please like and subscribe.